Welcome to Montana's only statewide sports talk show. Broadcast on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Western Montana and across the state on SWX Television.
I like football!
Now, the 2017 Radio Sports Broadcaster of the Year on the show with back-to-back Montana Broadcaster Association awards for sports coverage and award-winning sports journalism. Here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. Who will win the Big Sky in college football this season? A preview. And also, former University of Montana Athletic Director Jim O'Day on the ESPN Roundtable. It is Tutel Nuanez. It is 102.9 ESPN Radio. It is SWX Montana Television, and it is the Globe on YouTube, the Tutel Nuanez channel. There, you can check that out anytime you would like. Thanks for being with us on this Thursday afternoon. Hope you are having a wonderful day wherever you are, whatever you're up to today. Good to have you along with us. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris is at 2904 Broadway, West Broadway in Missoula, and on Highway 83 in Sealy. There we go. Got them both. Sealy and Missoula, and guess what? It's July. 30 years they've been in business. 30 years Kurtz Polaris has been doing it, and they are celebrating this month with 30% off. That's right, up to 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna or Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. That's all month long. See Kurtz for details. Some restrictions apply. Get to Kurtz Polaris all month for their 30-year anniversary sale. You can find us on the World Wide Web, 1029ESPN.com. There you can listen to the stream. The stream available all the time, whenever you want it, live to this station. The stream is there thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. If you'd like to give us a call, you can do that as well. 329-1899, 329-1899, the phone number. All guests join us via the Rankage Brothers RV phone line. We are going to start off with the Big Sky Conference and football. This coming weekend, Colter and I are heading over to Spokane for the Big Sky Conference football media kickoff. Which is happening all over the country. All the different conferences are doing it. The Big Sky is doing it in Spokane this year, which is great. We'll bounce over to that. We will be coming to you from Spokane on Monday, so looking forward to that as well. But we're going to do a little preview before we get there, and then afterwards, I'm interested to see if some of our feelings on this change. But just a little assessment of the Big Sky, what we expect, who we think is going to be good, medium, not as good in the Big Sky Conference. We also are going to have, we haven't done this in we were out last week because it was the 4th of July, and so we're back on a Thursday now with the chick who doesn't know sports. Okay, can't wait to have Carolyn back on with us. Looking forward to talking with her about all the things that she thinks are or aren't going on in the sports world, so we get to that. Maybe some People's Choice stuff if we can do it, and also the top of the hour, looking forward to this. Jim O'Day, our ESPN Roundtable every Thursday. We do it at 5 o'clock for you here on ESPN Radio, on SWX Television. And Jim O'Day, the former athletic director of the University of Montana, sat down with us. He won the Ray Racine Award at the 61st Annual CAPAX Awards Banquet. This is going back a few weeks, primarily for his work with the Special Olympics and organizing the Special Olympic Games in the city of Missoula that was here for 3 years. They do it in 3-year cycles. And so 3 years of Special Olympics Summer Games happened across the city of Missoula. If you were in Missoula, you knew about it. It was happening all over the place, an influx of so many participants, athletes, and then folks that were volunteering and participating in that. Really, such an awesome thing in general. And then, as it rotates around, great for the cities that get to host that. And Jim, very integral to that. So he won the award for that. But that's a jumping off point for a very long and I think interesting conversation for a guy who's seen and has great perspective on a life in sports and in Western Montana at the University of Montana. And so we'll have that interview for you coming up at the top of the hour. Hi, Colter. How we doing over there?
Doing great. Feeling great. Living the dream. Excited for all of the upcoming things. It's so funny because I, as you know, I'm a single guy. Love just doing my thing. I have a really very fun life. But I get even more excited about sports that I cover.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what is very indicative of how much I love my job. Because even I'm more excited for the Big Sky. I shouldn't say more because I love the 4th of July, but I'm as excited for the Big Sky kickoff as I was for the 4th of July.
See, I'm more
Well, you didn't get to hang out with all your childhood best friends and light off fireworks till midnight. Well, actually, you did come to my house and light off fireworks until midnight.
We had 3 sparklers in the bag left over that we got off before midnight to celebrate the independence of the country.
Something like that. No, I'm excited for this Big Sky football breakdown though, because here's my take on the Big Sky. Let's just get right into it. First of all, I gotta say, as far as teasing the Jim O'Day thing, we have a lot of good guests on this show and a lot of guys that I've known for a long time, that you've known for a long time, and that we've had prior relationships with and even personal relationships with. Yep. But Jim is a special guy to me. He means a lot to me. He has helped me a lot in my career. I've known him for the better part of my life. I mean, I've known him since I was a teenager. His son, Chris, is a little bit older than me, but then his wife worked for my best friend's dad for a long time, and Jim helped me in journalism school, and he was always so good to me when he's the AD, and he's given me so much good advice. We've had so many good conversations over the years.
And he's a journalist himself.
He's a journalist himself, and he's been a great sounding board, and just a great guy to just discuss the inner workings of college athletics. He's helped me understand that so much, and that's been crucial to my career. So it was cool for us to sit down with Jim, because Jim, he's just one of the greatest guys you'll ever meet.
No doubt. I mean, it's engaging and personable and all that stuff, but you could sit down. He can sit down with the president as easily as he could sit down with, well, yours truly, and just be affable and interesting and insightful and all of that stuff. And it's interesting because when you talk about Jim O'Day and the arc of his career, and particularly the way that it ended 7 years ago as the athletic director in bitterness, I think, for both. And when I say in bitterness, he doesn't seem to carry really any hostility or a grudge or whatever over what happened. But it was a bitter ending.
It was a knee-jerk reaction that shocked the community.
Well, it did, and I think that a lot of people look back and it's very unclear, I think, for people on what to think about that time period, or maybe there's people who have very strong and very clear feelings about that time period and know exactly who they think should or was responsible. But the difference is that you bring 25 of those people in the room, and they're going to point out maybe a dozen different people that they think we're all responsible, and so I don't want to get into all of that, but it is for the duration that he was as an alum of the University of Montana, and then working in the athletic department all the way up to being the athletic director over an unprecedented stretch of success on the field, and then for it to end that way. And I know that there are varying feelings about him specifically because of that. And I think, look, man, I if you were to poll this community at large, the people who would be going thumbs up 10 out of 10 for Jim O'Day, I think would be significant. It would be the majority. There's going to be dissenters in that as well, and I understand that. But if you want to talk about a guy who, again, has unbelievable perspective, who has who was the guy sitting there, with President Dennison and all the way through with Bobby Houck the first time around and everything like that, it's Jim O'Day. I mean, he's the guy. And for him to come down, sit down, and we did cover some of this stuff, which I think is, it's hard to have a conversation about the life that he's had without going into that part of it. You have to. And he was very gracious in that, and I think, it gives what feels like a reasonable perspective, certainly from his chair, on some of that stuff. So I think a great interview, and again, our thanks to him for sitting down and doing it. But you and I personally, I like, it's hard not to sit down with Jim O'Day and go, man, I like this guy. This is a great guy. I would like to sit down with this guy again. And we did. And we got the chance to do it a couple of times. So it's great.
It's great. At 5 o'clock, tune in for that interview. Big Sky football. I want to talk about just our picks for the SkylineSportsMT.com. We take this probably a little bit too seriously just in terms of the way that we score it all out. But I type up the composite schedule for every game in the Big Sky Conference. Mm-hmm. And then my brother Brooks and I, with a little bit of feedback from Andrew Houghton and yourself sometimes too, we kind of go through and score it all out. Put a pencil to paper.
Wins, losses,
who's going to beat who, what are the crucial games, how are they all going to finish? And then when we get through it, we then have kind of our standings, and then we adjust it. Sometimes when you're just ripping it off first take. You'll have a couple teams going 7-1 or 8-0 that aren't probably going to go 7-1 or 8-0. And a lot of this is, it's hard to predict. You never know how injuries are going to come about or anything like that. But in terms of the actual Big Sky Conference, here's my thought on the Big Sky. I think that since the Big Sky expanded, the Big Sky has been as wide open as it's ever been because of the quality of Southern Utah under Ed Lamb, and then in the early part of DeMario Warren, because of the quality of North Dakota being able to come in and win a league championship, because of the quality of Cal Poly being able to come in and make the playoffs a couple times, and now, last couple years, because of the sudden emergence of UC Davis. All four teams have been in the mix. How crazy is it that the four Great West teams that were absorbed by the Big Sky Conference have won championships since 2012, and neither Montana or Montana State have?
Right.
That's very telling.
Yes, it is.
That said, NAU hasn't been able to capture the expectations that they should have in the last handful of years. Idaho State being a little bit better than, there was one guarantee after Larry Lewis left Idaho State for the John Zamblin years leading up to then when Mike Kramer took over. Before Kramer, the one guarantee in the Big Sky was that Idaho State was finishing last. So the fact that they don't finish last, last year I think they won 3 league games.
Idaho State?
Yeah. 5 league games. Okay, right.
They were tied with Montana State for 4th.
There you go. And they beat Montana State head-to-head.
Yes.
And if they would have gotten to the 7-win mark, they probably would have gotten the playoffs.
Yes.
So that in itself is a little bit of an anomaly. And then, Portland State has had their breakthrough year a couple years back in Bruce Barnum's first season. And if you want to know how to define parity, you talk about basically every single team in the league with the exception of Sac State, Northern Colorado, and Idaho, who's now just recently back, and Idaho State. Those are the 4 teams that are currently in the league that have not made the playoffs since the league expanded. Everybody else in the league, including North Dakota, which was the 14th team, has made the playoffs, which is crazy in itself.
Yes.
All that said, we've talked about this extensively on this show. On the national scale in the FCS, there's only the Big Sky Conference in the West. There's some Southland teams that are kind of in the central, call it Southwest. But if you look at a map with where all the Big Sky schools are located, it's the Missouri Valley and then east. 100 schools in the east. The Colonial Athletic and the American
SoCon,
the American East, the SoCon, the Ohio Valley, everybody, they're all in the east. So it's a little bit hard for new teams that haven't been on the FCS scene before to build any traction. We saw it with Southern Utah. Southern Utah in 2013 was excellent. They were awesome. They had 4 NFL guys, including a couple guys. Miles Killebrew and Sean Sims are starters in the NFL right now. These guys were not just like roster guys. These guys are studs, 3rd-round draft picks. And they couldn't even break in the top 25 until they were like 8-1. And when they finished 9-2 as outright Big Sky champs, they get sent on the road to Sam Houston State. And so when Southern Utah is the best team in the league, everybody on a national basis considers the league to be down. And so when I analyze this league right now, I think this league this year is going to be more stratified. It's going to be more tiered, more haves and have-nots than any other year since the league expanded. I think that there's a chance for 5 teams to be very, very good, nationally ranked good. I only think that there's 2 teams that could be okay, and then I think everybody else is just going to be flat bad. And so when you're analyzing the strength of a league, I think some people would say deeper leagues and more parity means a better league. But to me, especially in college football, when you have when you're talking about North Dakota still playing a league schedule even though they're not in the league, when you're talking about so many teams, you're talking about North Dakota plus the rest of the 13 Big Sky teams with Idaho being back, having 10 pretty good teams is not good for anybody because you're going to cannibalize each other and no one's going to then get the inside track to have any national success. Right. So what I see when I look at the Big Sky Conference, and I didn't even have to tell you who the top 5 teams were, you just typed them out because you follow this, but to me, it's cut and dry. It's UC Davis, Eastern Washington, Weber State, the 3 teams that got buys in the playoffs last year. Montana State, which is the 4th playoff team out of the Big Sky, and Montana this year. And then I think that Portland State, because of their schedule more than anything else, has a chance to be okay. maybe a 4-win team in league. I think Cal Poly, because of the style that they play, has a chance to be okay, maybe 3 or 4 wins. And I think that, Idaho State, if Gunnar Amos can take over at quarterback and be solid, they could win a couple league games. But and Northern Arizona has Case Cookins, but they have a brand new coaching staff. They have everything there is different. And when you're talking about taking over for a guy who's been there for 22 years, that's the biggest mystery around.
Yeah.
Sac State was talented last year, but they have a new coach in Troy Taylor. So who knows where they're going to fit in the mix. But I just think that mostly, with the exception of NAU and Portland State, I think those are the okay teams. I think everybody else is just going to be not very good. The other factor here, though, that I think is going to actually accentuate and maximize the national prowess of the league, twofold. One, if Eastern Washington, Montana, and Montana State are the best teams in the league, that's the best thing for the Big Sky because those 3 teams will get national votes always. And if you have those 3 teams hovering around 8 or 9 wins, you have 3 top 10 teams, period.
Yeah.
UC Davis also managed to break into that sort of stratosphere last year. But the other thing about this is that the unbalanced schedule has played out in the favor so often of so many of the new teams. And that's been a bitter taste in the mouths of a lot of the flagship and original teams from the Big Sky. Cal Poly won the league in 2012, the first year of the expansion. They didn't play the Cats, the Grizz, or Eastern Washington. You only can play the teams you play, but that's just an asterisk on the schedule. Southern Utah didn't play the Grizz one year that they shared the league title. On down the line, Portland State was kind of the one of the surprise league champions that did play everybody that year. They had a powerhouse schedule. They beat FBS teams. They beat the Montana schools. They beat a lot of different teams. But the other point I want to make is that not only do I think the improvement of the Cats and the Grizz obviously help the national profile of the Big Sky, but also when you look at the schedule, UC Davis has a decently hard schedule. They have to play the Grizz in California. They got to play the Cats in Bozeman. They don't have to play Eastern. They do have to play Weber. Weber plays the Grizz, but they don't play the Cats. They don't play Eastern. Eastern plays the Grizz, and that's it. So Eastern's schedule is the most favorable schedule.
Well, and Montana State plays UC Davis and Montana,
and that's it.
And that's it of those top.
They don't have to play Eastern Washington or Weber State.
Or Weber, yeah.
So what I'm saying is the schedule has finally, the dice have finally rolled where the teams that are the best on paper also aren't going to cannibalize each other except for in big games. But those big games are going to be more for jockeying of position in the playoff race and jockeying of position in the standings rather than, an in or out game, kind of a bubble game. Right, and that's kind of where we've been at lately. Like last year, that Idaho State-Montana State game seemed like a bubble game, and Idaho State wins it, and then you're like, okay, Idaho State has the inside track as the 4th team coming out of the Big Sky, and instead, they kind of sputtered down the stretch, and Montana State won 3 straight down the stretch. They surge into the playoffs. Regardless, I think that because actually the fact that the middle and bottom of the league is going to be worse, and that the premier teams, the teams that have the resources and the coaches and all of the things that you need to be good are going to be the good teams this year, I think it actually sets the Big Sky up to have 5 playoff teams, which has never happened before.
It is a distinct possibility. The thing I like about the schedule, and there's not much that I do like about the schedule, and I never will for as long as there's 13 teams or 12 or 11 or however it is.
I don't think you are alone.
The thing I do like about it is many of them, not all of them, but many of the games against these teams that if we're at this point in the season when nothing's actually happened talking about it, that these games that could set up to be between, the teams that we think are going to be the best in the Big Sky are late in the season. Obviously, Montana State's always the last game. But guess what? Montana State, plays their game against who are they playing? Against UC Davis.
Early.
No, the second to last game of the season.
No, Montana
plays UC
Davis. You
right
said Montana State. Excuse me, I misheard you.
Montana State plays UC Davis
right before Montana, right?
On the second to last Saturday of the season,
right?
And then they play Montana,
and the Grizz play Weber,
on the second to last Saturday of the season, and then of course they play each other at the end. The difference is Montana, and this is the other side of it, opens with probably their biggest conference game of the season until they get to those last 2 against UC Davis.
Right.
And that is an absolutely massive game for Montana. Well, for both teams, frankly, and a great way to start the season off. But I do like you could see, right? In fact, you might even, I don't know if you would say you expect it. Let's put it like this. Montana State will be certainly, barring, injuries and all that stuff, certainly a favorite to heavy favorite in every single conference game that they play their first 6.
Yep.
Now, you can't sit here and say you expect a team to be 6-0, okay? But there is not one game that you would look at that and go, well, here's a game that, could go either way. You wouldn't even say that about any of those games. You would say, this is Montana State favorite, all the way through. And so until they get to UC Davis there on, second to last week of the season, I think it's the 16th of November, then, you could be talking about a team that's on quite a roll, potentially. And so that is exciting, and I like that aspect of this.
When the league was perfect, it's a wrong word to use, but when the league was
1968,
no. The league was perfect the last time Bobby Hauck was the head coach of Montana. When Northern Colorado joined the league in 2004 and expanded to 9 teams, you play 8 conference games, and everybody plays everybody. And it's an 11-game schedule. So now you get to play. If you're Montana, you can play 3 of whoever you want. And everybody else, you have to have the 3 non-conference in the Big Sky because everybody has to play a money game except for the Montana schools. And to contrast the money game, you got to go play Simon Fraser or Central Washington because you don't want to just, And then some schools like Portland State, they got to play too. So what do you get in the middle? You have to find somebody to play and compete. Because if you just go, like last year, they lose 72-19 to Nevada and they lose 70-14 to Oregon. That's not that great for the psyche. Right. But when the league was perfect and you had the 9 teams and 8 league games, Coach Hauck used to always talk about this. There's really no replacement for momentum. And Coach Hauck, he played a couple FBS games that first go around. Oregon and Iowa come to mind. But oftentimes, Montana was playing lower level FCS and then Division II teams. And they used to take some heat from that. But it's like Coach Hauck was saying, it don't matter who you beat. If you're 8-0 or 9-1 going into November, you're rolling. And then people have to come play you in Missoula, and everybody's excited about this Grizz team that's on a 6, 7, 8-game winning streak. Pandemonium, and that was why the machine was so unstoppable that was the Grizz. I think this is going to be very fascinating because I do think that Montana State has a chance to build a lot of momentum coming into the stretch run. And what we have seen, despite the ebbs and flows and the roller coaster that it's been during the Jeff Choate era and some of the shortfalls that has happened, the one thing you cannot deny is that Montana State plays their best football in November under the program that they have. Even their first year under Jeff Choate, when they went 0-6 to start Big Sky Conference play, they went 2-0 in November, and they beat the Grizz in Missoula. The next year, they win 2 straight down the stretch. Yep. They won 2 out of 3, but they lost to NAU on a 2-point conversion in Flagstaff. If they would have got that, would have been 3 straight. They would have had a winning record. Regardless, they win the Cat Grizz game. Last year, they're hanging on to their playoff lives. They're sitting there at 4-4. You're out if you lose, and they win 3 straight down the stretch. Right. And so if they actually have momentum going into November, it'll be a fascinating analysis. The Grizz, on the other hand, I think have a bookended schedule. They start with UC Davis, so they could set a tone. Or if you lose that game, they'll play in Davis early. If you lose it, it's not that big of a deal because then you can still, start 0-1 and then making it into 4-1. You're all right.
Yeah.
But then they have the middle of their schedule, Judgment Day with Eastern, and then the end of the schedule, Weber, Montana State.
I wanted to talk briefly about. I don't know. I want to talk about a difference between 2 teams that we have on 2 different tiers here.
Okay.
And that's Eastern Washington and Northern Arizona. And the reason I'd like to point these 2 teams out, I thought it was interesting. Last year, at this Big Sky Conference media days that they had, Case Cookus and Gage Gubrid were the 2 guys who got up and actually, as players, addressed the entire group of media, players, coaches, everybody. So every team brings 2 players, but those are the 2 guys the conference kind of chose as sort of spokespeople to address the group. Okay. And these were 2 of the guys who had the highest expectations and potential All-American types of...
Gubrid was an All-American.
Right, exactly. And all of that coming in. So here's the difference to me between Eastern Washington and NAU. And it's first of all, by the way, if you saw these 2, if you were picking on the football field, if you're a team captain, you're picking guys to come to play to you, you're taking Case Cookus 100 times out of 100. I mean, he's 6'4", 6'5", big, strong, everything. And Gage Gubrud, not as much. Anyway, doesn't matter. Gage Gubrud, great player. My point is this. When Case, both of them get injured last year, when Case Cookus goes down, and this happened the last couple of years, unfortunately for NAU, when Case Cookus goes down, that's it, and that's all in Flagstaff. The team goes as their quarterback goes, and there's nobody that's there, either whether it is a running game, whether it's picking it up on the defensive side of the ball, or whether it's the next quarterback in line to come in there and do it. When Eastern Washington loses Gage Gubrud, here comes Eric Barriere, and I think you're hard-pressed to say that it's an upgrade, but there's no drop-off. I mean, he comes in there, and they roll that thing all the way to the national championship, and that, to me, is the difference between a program, which Eastern Washington has, and a team that can recruit talent, which NAU can and has. But it's not the same, and that, to me, you see that disparity in the Big Sky where a team last year, Idaho State, can jump up there with some good players and get the thing going. And who knows? I mean, maybe they're starting something there. I'm not. Who knows? But that is the separation point, and it was on full display because the two big guns in the critical position both go down, and their teams go fork in the road. Eastern Washington, the national championship. NAU never to be heard from again.
Last year when we were interviewing Jerome Sowers, which turned out to be the last time we'll interview Jerome Sowers, which is actually too bad because I love interviewing Jerome Sowers, but he made an interesting point. We were talking to him about quarterbacks, and he said, I actually think that quarterbacks in the Big Sky Conference, more than any other conference in all of college football, including the FBS, get stuff put on them because you're recruited as probably a guy who's a little bit more talented than the level you're going to come be the guy for multiple years, and you are straight up expected to win games. When they recruited Case Cookus, they said, yo, you're coming, you're the starter, you're never going to not be the starter. You're going to starter as long as you're healthy. And that's a lot to put on a guy. But then when you lose that guy, that's when it just crushes you.
Right.
Because
it's hard to recruit behind that guy when you go, hey, this is the starter all the way through, period, end of story. But if he goes down, it could be you.
And that's the Eric Barriere. That's why Eastern Washington, they've had a seemingly endless pipeline. You know, from Josh Blankenship to Eric Meyer to Matt Nichols to Bo Levi Mitchell to Vernon Adams to Gage Gubrud. I mean, every single one of those guys, they're not just good. They're first-team all-league Walter Payton finalist quarterbacks. I mean, an Eastern quarterback has won, I don't know the number right off the top of my head, but I would estimate 10 of the last 20 Big Sky Conference offensive MVPs. I mean, including 2 in a row for Eric Meyer, 2 in a row for Matt Nichols, a Walter Payton Award for Bo Levi Mitchell, 2 in a row for Vernon Adams before he goes to Oregon. He would have won 3 in a row if he would have stayed. Gage Gubrud shares a couple. You know, one of them shares with his own teammate, Cooper Kupp. But here's the thing about Eric Barriere that's so fascinating. This is the greatest analysis of the difference between college and the NFL. I don't think Eric Barriere is as good. And Eric Barriere is a good quarterback. He's actually a really good quarterback as far as the actual skill of playing quarterback. He's not just a Chris Murray-like runner. He is an actual really good run-pass option quarterback. He can spin it. He's got a good arm. He can throw the deep ball. He can throw the intermediate ball. He's really great. But the biggest difference between college and the NFL is that Eric Barriere is not as good of a quarterback as any of those guys we just named. And, I mean, Eric Meyer, Matt Nichols, and Vernon Adams are all starting in the CFL or have started in the CFL in recent years. These guys are professional quarterbacks. But Eric Barriere is the best college football player of all those guys because of what he can give you. And with what they're doing on offense right now, with Aaron Best taking over, reprioritizing running the football, if you can smash the football between the tackles, out of the shotgun, and you can run pass option with a savvy quarterback who can make a decision, and that guy also happens to be the best athlete in the entire league with the exception of Troy Anderson. Who's stopping that guy? I mean, he's got so much juice, it's crazy.
Last thing I want to hit on here quickly, Coulter, with you. This is the thing that I hate the most about the schedule is that the best teams don't always rise to the top because you might have a much harder road, a significantly harder road. And every coach in the world can say, hey, every game counts the same. You just take whoever. But the fact of the matter is there are teams that are better than other teams. If you got to play more of those teams, it's harder, period. Okay, it's not that tough to figure that out. Here's what I want to know. I don't want to know based on schedule because when you look at the schedule, you look at, okay, Montana State, maybe, a couple of, but based on take these top 5 teams talent-wise, how good you think they are, how good you think they're going to be, if they all played the same schedule, okay? Say they played a round robin with one another, however you want to do it. How would you rank these 5 for this coming year? And I'm not saying how you think they're going to finish, but what you think, the order that you would place them in: Montana, Montana State, Eastern Washington, UC Davis, and Weber State.
I voted UC Davis number 1. I think UC Davis is number 1. They return the albatross is that Keelan Doss is the one guy. I mean, I think they return 9 starters on offense, and I think they return 10 starters on defense. The fact is that the one guy that they lose on offense is the best. I mean, one of the 3 best players in the league, regardless of position. He's a monster. Keelan Doss is a freak. But they also have an incredibly savvy quarterback, and I think that Dan Hawkins and Tim Plow is the best offensive combination in the league. I think Tim Plow is the best offensive coordinator in the league, and I think that Dan Hawkins, his implementation of his culture and style and how fast they've built it, I think UC Davis is number 1 regardless of schedule. It gets a little muddy after that because I think that although Eastern Washington has the easiest schedule out of these contenders.
But I don't want you to worry about schedule.
Well, no, I know. But I also think that Eastern Washington has massive question marks because how do you replace 28 seniors? I've never seen a college football team in that situation.
NDSU.
right. But it's only an FCS situation because you can't even recruit more than 25 guys at the FBS level, right? And in the FCS with split scholarships, it never gets to the point where all 28 of them get to the end. Like you sign, I think they signed 30 that year, and you get 28 of them to the end. How? That's amazing in itself. So, I mean, it's uncharted territory. How do you replace those guys? But then you also have Bodie Reeder, the offensive coordinator, left for a different job. Jeff Schmedding, the defensive coordinator, left for a different job. Special teams coordinator, Cherokee Valera, he's left for a different job. So now you have all 3 new coordinators. Aaron Best, year 2, how does he harness the momentum? But they do have Barriere. I think Montana has the hardest schedule of these, but all the way around, I think that Montana probably has the most glaring weaknesses out of the top 4, which I think are Montana, Montana State, Eastern Washington, UC Davis. I do think Weber is going to be competitive because Jay Hill will figure out a way to reload. They're so good on special teams and they're so good on defense that they're always going to be competitive. They have an identity, but I do think talent-wise they're probably 5th, but I don't think that means they're outside the playoffs. I do think they'll make the playoffs for a 4th straight year. But out of the other top 4, I think Montana's 4th just because they still have these 2 glaring weaknesses, which are offensive line and corner. The corner thing might be getting fixed a little bit with these 2 new transfers. We'll see. But I also think, though, that year 2 of Bobby Hauck, he will have a reinvigorated expectation of excellence. And I think that itself, I can't imagine the thoughts and conversations that have happened at the football office when they are talking about the fact that they lost their last 3 home games. It's not possible at Montana, and they did it. It's never happened at Washington Grizzly Stadium. And it wasn't as if they were getting stomped. They lost the game. The other team, UC Davis, give them a ton of credit for scoring all those points in the 4th quarter, but it was a meltdown by the Grizz. The Portland State game, I don't think the Grizz believed that they were going to lose that game until the final field goal went through the thing, and then it went through the uprights, and you're just like, everybody was just, what?
It was a tomb.
It was a tomb. How did this happen?
Yes.
And then you're wailing on the Cats. You're in complete control. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, Travis Johnson and Troy Anderson just start going crazy. So I do think Montana has a chance to be better. But as far as just talent-wise, I'm going UC Davis 1, Montana State 2, Eastern Washington 3, Montana 4.
And Weber 5.
The one thing is, though, the quarterback position is of such importance, especially in the Big Sky Conference, that I think the Cats have the best offensive line in the league. I think they have a chance to have the best D-line in the league, the best secondary in the league. I think the Cats have a chance to have
the best running game.
I voted 5 guys on Montana State's defense for first-team All-League preseason. Yep. And I also think they have 4 All-League candidates on the offensive line. I think when you pair Troy Anderson and Isaiah Fonse together, it's the best backfield duo in the league. All that said, if they find a quarterback that's okay, they're going to be just fine. If they find a below-average quarterback, they're going to have to do some work, but I still think they're going to be competitive to make the playoffs. If they go on a crazy quarterback carousel or they can't find an answer or they have a quarterback that's losing games for them, it could go off the rails big time.
Yeah. All right, Coulter, good stuff. Plenty more to come. Again, Monday, our first Montana Football Hour of the year, first hour of every show every Monday. going to be dedicated to the sport of football in the state of Montana here on Tutel and Nuanez. That will be coming from Spokane, Washington in the Big Sky Conference Media Days for football, which we'll be attending over the weekend. Quick break. On the other side, sports from a chick who doesn't know about sports. But you wouldn't know that to listen to. Well, yeah, you would. You would know. It's a lot of fun every time Carolyn joins us, so we'll do that next. Hey, RecCon is happening next week, the 19th and 20th of July, Friday and Saturday at Fort Missoula. It's where outdoor recreation and conservation meet. Dozens of exhibitors from gear manufacturers to outdoor nonprofits will be there. Outdoor learning labs throughout the day for people to learn more about products and initiatives from various groups. Tons of sweet off-road vehicles to go check out. Love checking out the off-road stuff. Fun for the whole family. It's from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. both days. Again, that's Friday and Saturday next week, July 19th and 20th at the Fort Missoula. You can see online, get tickets at RecConMontana.com, RECCON Montana.com. There's also still some limited camp spots available if you want to go down there and be a vendor, show something down there. You can certainly do that. There will be food. There will be beer from Big Sky Brewing. So you got all kinds of stuff going on and a ton of you can go online, again, to RecCon Montana to see all of the just industries and people and groups and organizations and businesses that are represented at this. A ton of great stuff. Plenty have been through these doors, in fact, and on these radio waves. So go check it out. Again, RecCon, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. next Friday and Saturday at the Fort Missoula. Go check it out. RecCon and RecConMontana.com. Hello, Missoula. Ryan Tutel here from Tutel and Nuanez. At the beginning of 2019, Coulter came up with a new idea that has already grown into one of our most broad, in-depth, and successful segments. The ESPN Roundtable has been a highlight of the year for us so far.
From the standout seniors from the University of Montana men's Big Sky Conference Championship basketball team to NFL players with Montana ties to Grizz head coach Bobby Hauck to Montana State Athletic Director Leon Costello, we've covered a wide swath with these weekly long-form interviews.
Heck, we even had a real Irishman in the studio. Standout Grizz men's tennis player Oisin Shaffery was certainly one of our most entertaining subjects.
As we enter the summer months, we're going to keep the ESPN Roundtable rolling with a collection of premier guests.
So check out the ESPN Roundtable. The 30-minute segment airs at noon each Wednesday on Tutel and Nuanez at 5 p.m. on 102.9 ESPN Missoula and SWX Television every Thursday, and forevermore as part of the Big Sky Breakdown podcast series at SkylineSportsMT.com.
The ESPN Roundtable, presented by Paradise Falls, Missoula's coolest hotspot.
Okay.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
We ate a lot of steaks before we came up with the Montana Club's Private Reserve Cut Angus. It's as good a steak as you're going to get. Our Private Reserve Cut Angus is specially cut for us. And with our custom seasoning, it has a flavor that's absolutely incomparable. We're confident that it will satisfy the most discriminating steak customer for an unrivaled steak experience. Real Montana, real food. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
In western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at SelwayArmory.com. Hey everybody, Ryan Tutel, and I'm here with Josh of the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, there's a lot of lawyers in this area. What makes you different?
At the Advocates, we primarily focus on injury cases. That gives us the experience and the knowledge to correctly evaluate your case and work with insurance companies and other attorneys so you get exactly what you deserve to make you whole again. We take really good care of our clients, and we're going to fight for every single dollar you deserve.
Call 640-4444 or online at MontanaAdvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, Sports Center. Spencer Brickhouse launched his first home run as a pro in the bottom of the first inning, sparking the former first-team All-American's best hitting night on Wednesday. His early two-run shot put the Osprey up 2-1 against the visiting Orem Owls, and then Brickhouse's bases-clearing double in the bottom of the eighth, which scored all three runs, bases were loaded, helped sew up a 7-1 victory for the O's. Brickhouse, a former East Carolina star, finished the game 3 for 4 with 5 RBI in the O's win. They won for the 8th time in their last 12 games and moved to 13-11 this season. Missoula's second game of an 8-game homestand is tonight against the Owls of the Pioneer League South. First pitch is at 7:05, can be heard right here on 102.9 ESPN, Missoula Radio, and SWX Montana Television.
The Montana Grizzlies landed 2 more transfers Wednesday afternoon, officially adding former Hawaii defensive back Mikal Tolliver and former Merced Junior College linebacker Soane Vahea to its roster. Each has 2 years of eligibility remaining. Last season, Vahea notched 80 tackles, 10 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and an interception. Tolliver saw action in 6 games as a redshirt freshman and recorded 5 tackles in 2017 before a knee injury kept him out last season.
And finally, Jashir Hartnett has reopened his recruitment. The grad transfer from BYU did not get accepted into the International Education Leadership Program.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Time to hear about sports from somebody who doesn't know sports. And it's always a good time when Carolyn comes by for a visit. It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris Studios. July is Kurt's 30th birthday. That's right, 30 years they've been in business, and they're celebrating this month by offering up to 30% off. That's right, 30% off of MSRP on select parts and accessories with a purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna and Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month for Kurt's 30-year anniversary sale.
Don't worry, we're still doing your favorite segment. It's back. It's just been gone for the last couple weeks because,
The 4th of July, we were on vacation.
Sporadic vacations and, unreliable sources and all sorts of things. But here we are, Carolyn Buckta back in the saddle. Sports update from a chick who claims to not know anything about sports, but she usually has a lot of good things to say, especially when you give her 3 weeks to prepare.
Well, now I'm nervous.
We also have a sponsor, so don't worry about this, but this thing's become a big deal. Missoula Winery and Events Center now sponsoring this wonderful segment.
Why am I not surprised that wine was the thing that came in to sponsor Carolyn to do her update?
All I wanted.
How many wines into this day are you right now?
Just like
several?
I mean, it's hot, so I've just had a bottle of rosé.
Okay.
But I'm good.
And if you're looking for a good rosé, check out Tattoo Girl Rosé. Missoula Winery and Events Center, they're the main distributors of Tattoo Girl wine here in Missoula and around the country. And the rosé, 91 rating on Wine Enthusiast, one of the best rosés you'll find anywhere in the world. It's great. It's delicious. If you want to go taste it, their tasting room's open from 2 to 7 p.m. Wednesday through Saturday. It's out there by Big Sky Brewing, just kind of a little bit past the airport, or a little bit short of the airport, right off the freeway there. If you want to go check them out, it's a great place to hang out. They have a great outdoor back patio, great place to sip wine. They have events from time to time. You can check that out at MissoulaWineryEvents.com. And 2 to 7, Wednesday through Saturday. You love the Tattoo Girl wine.
I love the Tattoo Girl wine. I don't really even like white wine, but I really like their rosé, which I know isn't technically white.
But you like the Riesling, too.
I do like the Riesling, yeah.
Yep.
And it's perfect summer wines in this hot weather.
Chick who doesn't know about sports update brought to you by Missoula Winery and Event Center. Appreciate those fine folks out there for being a part of this. Carolyn, tell us, what are you burning on? You got a lot on your list right there, I can see.
No, my handwriting's just really scratchy. So I have to obviously lead with the World Cup.
Obviously.
I mean, what kind of empowered female would I be if I didn't? So really great news about the women.
Yes.
But I need to know something.
Yes.
Why does the men's soccer team suck so bad?
Well,
if you listen to our show more often, you'd know.
I would argue that they have certainly not been as good as they've been in the past recently. So I don't know the answer to that question, but I would argue that the men's game of football, as it were, soccer internationally, is quite strong in many countries where it has not been strong for women because of the very empowerment feature which you spoke of. So I think that the women's soccer team in the United States has been able to play soccer and play it at a high level and an increasingly high level over time, where a lot of countries, not all, but many,
like Thailand,
are just coming along. Thailand would be one that might be kind of new to the dance floor, as it were. Whereas, I don't know, 197 countries on earth playing men's soccer, right?
Well, another thing is, I said this on the radio the other day. I think that Megan Rapinoe and Alex Morgan, I mean, these girls are among the greatest athletes in the world for women, no question.
Right.
And they are among the greatest American athletes, no question. All of our greatest men's athletes are not playing soccer.
I know, agreed. Yes.
But they're playing basketball, they're playing football, they're playing baseball. It's like I always say, like, what if LeBron James and Rajon Rondo and Russell Westbrook all played soccer? We'd probably be pretty good at soccer.
Maybe.
Bubba Watson?
I think it's
John
great
Rahm?
though, because when you think about the WNBA and
Spaniard.
versus the NBA, like it doesn't have to be equal sports. Like I think it's great. Women have their own sport.
Right.
Go get them. They're awesome. They're amazing. I mean, that field alone is so gigantic. I couldn't even run across that thing in less than 10 minutes.
Well, if there was some tattoo girl there.
Oh yeah, if there was tattoo girl at the end,
you might
for
get
sure,
there.
for sure.
What you guys want to hear something sweet? When the United States Women's National Team came back to the U.S. and they had their big, celebratory dance like a championship team does. They had it in New Jersey or something, and they walk out. When they walk out onto the pitch, in all these soccer games, men and women, there's like kids that walk out there with them very often. And so Megan Rapinoe had this little blonde-haired girl who came out with her. One of my best buddy's daughters.
No way.
Are you kidding me?
That's
in
amazing.
Jersey, got to walk out and hoist the World Cup trophy
That is awesome.
on national, international television. I'm going, that's the greatest sports thing that's ever happened to somebody that I had 1 degree of separation from.
Yeah, well, except me. I mean, my tennis team won the state championship in 1993.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, is that the same
were
thing?
you in Canada? I didn't think they had states.
it was Chicago.
Oh.
Well, Illinois.
So now you're in America now doing that. Okay.
Speaking of wine and rosé, what do you think of the celebration after? Because these girls have they've been
raging.
Just
I know.
raging.
I saw they were on some billionaire's yacht the other day.
And it's become, this is the thing I hate about modern day world, especially the Twitter sphere, is that everything has to be one side or the other. It's either great or it sucks.
Right.
It's either, and everybody, like, there's so many people that are like, these girls are being trashy. And it's like,
What about when
they just won the world championship. They're just partying. Who cares?
What about when the guys win the Stanley Cup and they're
Right.
drinking
I mean, Alexander
champagne out of it?
Ovechkin
Yeah.
drank beer for 3 weeks straight.
Yeah.
Alexander Ovechkin is still partying on his last
Good for him.
Stanley Cup win. Nobody has gone harder than Ovi and the rest of the Washington Capitals on that thing. And here's what I think. I think you got a week, maybe 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, depending on the thing, to do whatever you want. You cannot go to jail. There's nothing like that. Well, I mean,
Wow.
sort of like, homicide,
murder
but
somebody.
no. But like, we're talking about like, no matter what, like, I don't care. Okay. Nobody gets hurt. You can't go to jail. Like, you're falling asleep on the subway. Does not matter. You're fine. Just keep going. All license is yours. If you've won a darn World Cup or some other substantial championship, notably not the state tennis tournament.
Well, too late. I feel like these women and men, when they are, at this level of, athleticism, they are probably not drinking much or partying much or eating anything delicious for however long during these, tournaments or whatever. So I say go for it.
So maybe they're just drinking a normal amount, but it's affecting them more because they've been teetotaling for months.
I mean,
I was thinking exactly about that. They're probably not even drinking a normal amount. They're probably not drinking hardly at all. And they're just, they had one glass of champagne, first glass of champagne in 2 years,
wasted.
feeling great.
Yeah. I think, more power to them. I hope they build up a tolerance over the next 10 days and just keep raging until soccer season starts.
There you go. Let her rip.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good.
What else you got?
I learned of something today
Okay.
called the Big Three League.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed.
I wish I could swear. What the heck is this about? Ice Cube forming a basketball league of like washed up NBA players?
Lamar Odom got he didn't get kicked out, but he
Well.
got released
Yeah.
from because of not being competitive enough.
He
And
was
Jermaine
very
O'Neal
nervous.
Was nervous?
Lamar was nervous. He thought people were going to make fun of him.
They did. They are.
I mean, I'll always make fun of Lamar. 'Cause,
Well, sure.
Yeah, he could have been somebody. And
He
then
could have been
married-
on Sunset Strip tonight or
Uh-huh.
whatever it
Well, he
is on
basically
Netflix.
was. He was
and
on
then
Kardashians.
He tried to be a basketball player. Like, what kind of life choice was that?
There's a lot of life choices he made that I don't agree with. However, it's been fun to watch.
But he won a world championship, so he's made plenty of his life. Why do you think the Big Three is a joke? For your knowledge, the 3-on-3 has been added as an Olympic sport. That's kind of the impetus for creating this.
So is breakdancing, just in case you wanted to know that.
That's your future.
I know.
It's gonna be
That's
your
my son's
second-
future.
Oh, yeah, the coffee grinder?
Yeah.
Let's go.
I was just sort of surprised to read about the Big Three today. I didn't know it existed. I didn't know it was professional basketball. How much money do you think these guys are making?
I would say about $100,000 a year.
Far less than that. This is about exposure and staying in it or whatever. Maybe they
Becoming
are
an
making that money.
influencer?
Let's put it like this. They're probably making the money because it has some financial backing, but it's more about connections. Like the reason you're doing it is because Ice Cube said, hey, let's do a thing. So Allen Iverson shows up and coaches and whatever. I watched the Big Three like the first week that it was on. I said, no, I cannot do this. This is old man over the hill. We're not even in it anymore. Basketball, still good skill, still a lot of good players. We're not always going to be good basketball players, but I couldn't deal with the Big Three.
I mean,
it
I see
seems
this-
a
yeah.
little far fetched.
I see old man basketball all the time at the court
Yes.
down by my house.
Mhm.
All the 40-year-old men trying to relive their youth, and I don't want to watch it on TV. I can get it for free out the back door, and it's pretty comical. Although maybe they could make it like Harlem Globetrotter style with these guys, and they could pull a hammy, and it could be a whole thing.
I think that there's a little bit of a difference between Lamar Odom and Steven Jackson and the guys that play behind your house on our childhood court.
No difference.
I mean, it's hilarious either way. So I don't know. Someone's always getting hurt. And it's
Here's
pretty
where
funny.
I've reached with baseball. I would rather watch the Big Three than any baseball game.
Come on. Stop with that. What do you,
I'm going to agree with that.
See?
Baseball, unless you're at a game.
Right. Baseball
Right.
on TV,
No.
just go outside.
Just stop with this. That's such a sorry take. Okay, what else do you got here, Carolyn? By the way, you're listening to Two Tail and Nuanez. We are having a conversation. A sports update from a chick who doesn't know about sports. Our friend Carolyn back at it again. All right, what else?
Yeah,
What else
I've
we got?
basically been on vacation for 2 weeks, so that's all I got.
Okay, no, that's good. I mean, that's fine. That's a good one to ride out on, the Big Three. You didn't know was there. It's only, I don't know, 2 years old now? So,
Like I said, I don't know about
It's
sports.
because of the rosé. We got to talk about one more thing. How's your spin going? How's the sweatshop going?
Great. Went this morning at 6 a.m.
You've been sweating at
I've been
6 a.m. all
sweating
week.
at 6, and there's
Did
times
you
where
do
I'm
4
like,
this week?
this was my third.
I did 4 this week.
Oh, wow.
Feeling good.
Well, have you done the 90-minute sweat intensive
No, but I
yet?
did drench today, and Allie whooped me.
I know. I need to get to that one because I heard Allie is a real, buster.
We were listening to nothing but 90s hip hop.
What?
It was
I
great.
missed that.
It was great. Sweatshop's going well.
It's going great.
The
I love
spin,
it.
Spin cycle and
Yep.
everything is really fun. We've
It's
we've
super
enjoyed
fun.
doing it, and go check them out. It's on the corner of Broadway and Higgins, and first class is free, right?
I think it's like if you buy one, you get your second free.
Okay.
Or buy two, get one free.
Go down there and check it out. It's worth it, I promise. Great workout, getting in great shape, and it's intense classes. They're fun.
And you
They're-
sweat.
You sweat. They're quick. I mean, I
Yep.
went on my lunch break. I was out 12 to 12:45.
Yeah, and you
good,
don't look disgusting right
feeling
now.
great.
So good job.
Well, thank you. And the more sweatshop you do, the more Tattoo Girl wine you can drink, right?
Exactly. That's why I've already had a bottle today.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sports update from a chick who doesn't know about sports. Brought to you by the Missoula Winery and Event Center. Their tasting room is open from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. Wednesday through Saturday. Go check them out. Try some Tattoo Girl wine. You got some rosé, some Riesling, some of the most delicious white wines you'll find anywhere. I mean, they got 3 wines that are rated 89 or higher by wine enthusiasts. So it's a good place to go check out wine, a great venue, and just darn good drinking, right?
Darn good drinking.
I mean, that's the most important thing. People's Choice Awards coming up. Yes, there you go.
That's what the bottle looks like for
You're
all our
watching.
SWX and the YouTube channel listeners, go check it out. Missoula Winery and Event Center is a great place.
The People's Choice Awards are out. There are 2 very notable ones and one that they just clearly didn't get right. We'll get that next.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter, Brooklyn, was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Alpine Touch makes the perfect gift this summer or any time of year. If you are traveling, bring a gift that is distinctly Montana and give your loved ones some of the best spices anywhere around. From the Alpine Touch Pick 4 Spice Pack to the All-Purpose Twin Pack to the mouth-watering sunflower shoots to Alpine Touch gift cards. Alpine Touch makes the perfect Montana present. Available at retail locations around the state or online for a limited time. Use the code ESPN10 at checkout to get 10% off any online order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce 2 of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get up to $150 instant rebate on 4 backcountry MT or AT tires or $50 on 4 road control passenger tires. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, pump it up, pump it up.
Last-minute barbecue invitation? Stop at Town Pump on the way. Pick up White Claw, Truly, and Smirnoff Seltzers 12-pack cans for only $14.99. Save the other arm to pick up Gardettos and Chex Mix. Buy one, get one free. Be the barbecue hero with a little help from Town Pump.
Town Pump, right down the road. Pump it up, oh yeah.
When you need a bank to help ramp up your savings strategy, look to your local bank, Opportunity Bank of Montana. Build confidence in your financial future when you create a rainy day cushion or take care of the nest egg you already have. Opportunity Bank offers options from basic savings to money market accounts and certificates with competitive rates. There's nothing like the feeling of progress, so let's get started today. Come see us at Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com. Member FDIC.
Here at Florence Coffee Co., we are proud to serve the finest flavors under the big sky, like our smooth and delectable cold brewed toddy coffee. Florence Coffee's fresh brewed toddy coffee is known for its low acidity and smooth flavor. Served over ice, add your favorite flavor or an iced coffee like no other. Try one today at any of our Flowco locations around Western Montana and visit us at FlorenceCoffeeCo.com.
Florence Coffee Company.
If it matters to Missoula, it matters to us. Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio.
Standing there by the window, staring out at the night. You got so many troubles on your nervous mind. But don't worry,
Some
baby.
notable
It's gonna work out
results that we'll go through now. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We're broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday month. That's right, 30 years they've been in business, and they're celebrating by offering up to 30%, really 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna Beta dirt bike, and any Crest pontoon boat as well. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month for Kurtz Polaris 30-year anniversary sale. Coulter, every year, the Missoulian puts out the People's Choice Awards on all kinds of things. I mean, favorite salon, favorite place to eat, favorite place to drink, favorite local band, favorite all this stuff. And so they did favorite media stuff. And for, I think this is the 600th year in a row, Craig Johnson is the favorite DJ, our recently retired comrade who is probably in his Airstream, I don't know, what do you think? Kentucky, Tennessee, Think that's about where they're at right now?
Maybe Canada?
Who knows? Canada?
Alaska?
Yeah, they could have gone north. Probably the right way to go. They probably didn't go due east or south in this time of year. But anyway, Craig, who you and I had the just pleasure of working with for the last couple of years, for me the last several years of his very, very long and very successful isn't even really the right way to put it. I mean, it's iconic career, yes, legendary career, is the People's Choice Award, and maybe also consequently and wisely chosen by the people. The Trail 103.3, our sister station over there, just a couple of clicks down the dial. Obviously, Tommy on there, Robert, our good buddy Robert Chase, doing the morning shows now. The People's Choice Award for favorite radio station, so that was great. But then I was also sifting through some other ones, and I saw this one, and I said, well, I mean, it sort of undercuts the rest of them. Like, if this is the result here, it kind of seems like, well, maybe these are all wrong, you know? Because, I mean, first of all, the fact that you and I were not favorite radio personalities begs a question, like, is this, you know, have people really done their research? You know, because it seems like you missed one there. But then the other one was favorite K through 12 teacher, People's Choice Awards, kindergarten through 12th grade teacher. You ready for this? Austin Tutel, my brother, your friend, the guy who probably the two of us know collectively Austin better than any human being walking the earth. Like if you and I sat here and said, between the two of us, who do we know the best of anybody in the world? It's Austin Tutel. No question. Third grade teacher.
The thing that's so funny is your brother is such an enigma that I actually feel like I know you way better. I've known him for so long, but he is just so all over the place, and he sometimes is just so enigmatic. You're just trying to get to the core of this guy, and you're like, where are you at?
Well, I mean,
in there?
You know, of course he's in there. He's in there because he's, you know, thinking about the world. He's imagining possibilities.
I do know your brother is so well on that level,
exactly,
the intellectual level.
You guys are the same way in a lot of those ways.
Oh, and we love to stay up till 4 a.m. talking about
trying to figure
crazy
stuff
out,
trying to figure out what's going on in the universe. You know. He's also great with kids, and he's been a third grade teacher at Paxton Elementary now for the past couple of years. In fact, I think this is his 4th year there, if I'm counting them up correctly. And so, congratulations to Austin Tutel for winning the People's Choice Award as favorite K through 12 teacher in and around Missoula area. He won't know this. He's fishing in Alaska. You know, in the summers. He has now, for the last several years, gone up and done commercial fishing, salmon fishing, in Bristol Bay. He's deep in it in Alaska. You want to get out of service? Get in the Gulf of Alaska. I don't know that that's what it's called. Gulf of Alaska, and go fishing. You got your satellite phone. That's the only way you can get through to anybody. So he's up there. He's got I didn't even know he was nominated. I didn't even know it was a possibility. Anyway. I will say I have watched the man work. Truly, I mean, teaching it ain't for everybody. Okay, let's put it like that. Notably, the two of us. Okay,
I don't know about that. My second career will be as a teacher.
A university teacher?
Yes.
Okay.
You're talking about children.
Third graders. Bro.
I think I could do it. You would be better than you think. First of all, your aura and persona is so undeniably funny that kids would love that.
Here's the thing. I think the kids would like me a lot. I think I'd like the kids a lot. Don't know how much learning getting done. I don't know how much.
Well, you could just be just like Austin Tutel. Just prophesize whatever the heck is in your mind.
No. You got no idea how much he puts into it. So anyway,
I do have all the idea.
My brother won the thing. I'm very happy for him. I'm very proud of him, and I look forward to seeing him in 3 weeks and letting him know the good news, which will, of course, the news cycle will have passed, and people are like, well, yeah, dude, where have you been? And he won't even get to ride the wave of joy. Isn't there a parade or something where they walk you down the thing and throw the candy in the deal? Anyway, good for him. Hour one of the books. Next, Jim O'Day, former athletic director of the University of Montana, the subject of our ESPN Roundtable this week. A great interview. Stick with us. You're going to want to hear from him next.
Don't mess around with Mother Nature. Your home is your biggest investment. For protection that lasts, don't trust your home to anything less than Sicken Prolux stains from Garden City Paint and Glass. Sicken Prolux stains are tough enough to take on Montana's 4 seasons, providing excellent moisture resistance for outdoor railings, decks, and outdoor furniture. Sicken Prolux exterior and interior stains. Available only at Garden City Paint and Glass in Missoula, across from the Southside McDonald's at 3217 Brook Street.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel, and I'm here with Josh of The Advocates. Josh, do most injury accidents end up in court?
Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court through a fair negotiation with an insurance company. However, sometimes it is necessary. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get a fair settlement. Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court with a fair negotiation with the insurance company. However, I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get the right settlement for you.
It's Josh at The Advocates, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com.
Still emerging from your winter hibernation and need to get your bearings straight? Cruise on down to Port of Missoula for all your spring and summer needs. Come check out their men's and women's streetwear, sunglasses, and shoes from brands like Vans, Adidas, Thrasher, Volcom, and the original Port of Missoula brand. They also have all your skating needs covered, from tune-ups to fresh-made custom boards. Port of Missoula, Missoula's original board shop since 1989, on the Hip Strip, 618 South Higgins.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
A pleasant Thursday afternoon to you. Hope you're doing as great as Coulter and I are. I don't know how you could be because we're doing great, but hopefully you're doing great too. Spencer Brickhouse watched his first home run as a pro. That's surprising, isn't it? In the bottom of the first inning, sparking the former first-team All-American's best hitting night on Wednesday night. His early 2-run shot put Missoula Osprey up 2-1 against the visiting Orem Owls, and Brickhouse's bases-clearing double in the bottom of the 8th sewed up a 7-1 victory. Brickhouse, a former East Carolina star, finished the game 3 for 4 with 5 RBI as the O's won for the 8th time in their last 12 outings and are now 13-11 on the season. Missoula's second game of an 8-game homestand is tonight against the Owls, from the Pioneer League South. First pitch is scheduled at 7:05. Can be heard here on 102.9 ESPN Radio and SWX Montana Television.
Brickhouse said postgame he's been adjusting to the wooden bat. The Montana Grizzlies, they landed 2 more transfers Wednesday afternoon, officially adding former Hawaii defensive back Mikal Tolliver and former Merced Junior College linebacker Soane Vaohea to its roster. Each has 2 years of eligibility remaining. Last season, Vaohea notched 80 tackles, 10 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and an interception. Tolliver saw 6 games of action in 2017 before a knee injury kept him out last season.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
It's time for our ESPN Roundtable, and this week a good one, boys and girls. Former athletic director of the University of Montana, Jim O'Day. It is Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Good to be with you there. On the Tutel and Nuanez channel on YouTube, good to be with you there as well. Thanks for being with us on this afternoon. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. And July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday. 30 years they've been in business, and they are celebrating by offering up to 30% off. That's right, 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna and Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month for Kurt's 30-year anniversary sale. If you missed anything, by the way, in that first hour, check it out on the podcast. Podcast available all the time for you at your leisure on your favorite podcasting platform to listen to. Thanks to all the podcast sponsors, including Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. It brings it to us and to you. Coulter, we had a chance, as we talked about off the top, to speak with Jim O'Day. I don't want to spend a lot of time. In fact, we don't have a ton of time here setting this thing up, but just quickly, 30 seconds. Jim O'Day, former athletic director of the University of Montana, went through some great stretches. It ended poorly as the athletic director and amidst, controversy and I think a fair amount of confusion as well. But nonetheless, a guy who has been through and seen a whole lot, was a recipient of the Ray Racine Award here just about a month ago, which was the impetus for this conversation that we did. But again, couldn't be a nicer guy to talk to, a guy that you just seem to like immediately when you start speaking to him. And he's always just been very gracious to us and for you professionally, going back a long, long time. Yeah, good mentor of mine, great friend of mine, and of ours as well. And I already went over all that. But I think the one thing that's worth noting is so much of what Jim O'Day is I guess the end has stolen a lot of what was the beginning and the middle. And I remember when I was in journalism school at the University of Montana 2006 or 2007, when I was working at the Montana Kaimin, one of the first big profiles I wrote was about Jim O'Day. And one of the main portions of the lead of that story was about how the previous season, the Montana Grizzlies had won a game in the NCAA tournament in men's basketball. The women had won the Big Sky Conference Championship outright and advanced to the NCAA tournament, and the football team had advanced in the FCS playoffs. And I think that they were one of three athletic departments when you tier it out, because obviously you're comparing FBS to FCS a lot of times, but when you tiered it out, they're one of three Division I athletic departments that had that success in the three primary revenue sports. So they were, amongst the elite in the country, period. And then we take into account it's a small school. It was the glory days. It certainly was. And it's something that Montana's trying to recapture. The men's basketball team at Montana has sort of helped Montana still have a portion of the spotlight of the Big Sky Conference, but it's not what it once was. And I think that that's something that anybody that is associated with the University of Montana hopes that it can reattain. But I think Jim O'Day knows better than anybody why it was how great it once was. And I think that is why he's such a wealth of information and such a great resource for us. Without further ado, the ESPN Roundtable presented by Paradise Falls, Jim O'Day. Well, welcome into the ESPN Roundtable. The former athletic director of the University of Montana, a lifer in athletics in the state of Montana, and now a very vague consultant in the world, Jim O'Day. Jim, hi. How are you? Thanks for being here.
Well, I appreciate you guys putting up with me again.
Well, we're certainly happy to have you in. A bunch of stuff to get to here with you today, and a lot of fun to talk about your past, your history, your perspective thereby, and the state of affairs in athletics in the Western Montana. And you've just received the Ray Racine Award. What is this award? What did you get it for?
I'm not really sure why I got it. Actually, there's a lot more well-deserving people that truly deserve it. Like I said a little bit about was with Special Olympics and the things that I've been doing with them the past couple of years, but I said I'll accept it on their behalf because I know the 3 years especially that we ran the state games here when I was here, we had 2,000 volunteers. And you think about it, that's a lot of volunteer efforts. And so I'm not the one certainly that deserves it because of things like that. There's a lot of other people who certainly deserve it.
Well, those Special Olympic Games in Missoula for those 3 years, it just brought the city such energy because it didn't happen at a place. It happened all over town over the course of multiple days. You talked about the number of volunteers you needed, but every year I think it brought such great visibility to the Special Olympics and to what everybody was up to. And also, what better sports brings people together, but especially something like the Special Olympics. What a great community and even region event to have, right? That's so impactful in a lot of ways, some of which are quantifiable, many of which are not.
What a great organization. Bob Norby is just going out as our executive director. I believe he's been there 27 years. Rhonda McCarty been taken over. Rhonda has been with the Special Olympics for the last couple of years. But Bob just did an incredible job. And he really, really pushed hard on the summer games. And we had them for the 3 years. Great Falls will have one more year this year. Then they rotate a little bit, and they'll go to Bozeman and Billings again before they're back in Missoula. But just, you're right. To be able to go out there and watch those participants and see how hard they work and how much it means to them. But at the end of the day, realize, you know what, that's just a piece of life. And very rewarding, a great organization. Like I said, I've been on their board for the last 7 years for the state level, and just getting to know the people and getting to know so many of the Special Olympians has really been special.
To tell undersold, Ray Racine Sportsman of the Year Award is one of the best awards you can receive in Missoula or the state of Montana. And I know there's been a lot of prestigious guys that have won it, but on your behalf, somebody that's from Cut Bank and has lived in Missoula for so long, what keeps you in Montana? What do you love about working in sports in this state?
Well, I just love Montana. I mean, that's number one. Missoula is a very special place to me. I remember when I came here to the University of Montana, I'll never forget, it was 1975, a long time ago. I had never been in Missoula in my life when I stepped foot outside and then got into the campus. But as I've said many, many times before, when the University of Montana played UCLA in 1975 in the NCAA men's basketball tournament, and Eric Hayes and all of that crew, Smedley's and the McKenzies and Michael Ray Richardson and the Pecks and all those guys, I didn't realize I was a UCLA fan, and I'll never forget listening to that on the radio because we didn't get it on TV up in Cut Bank, and listening to how a team from Montana could compete on a national level with a team, which ended up being John Wooden's final championship. He retired that year. And I thought, how neat is that? And the next day I went into my high school counselor and asked a little bit about the University of Montana. I had probably been planning to go to Montana State because all my friends were going there. Or my dad really wanted me to go to Carroll as he was an alum of Carroll. But I stepped foot in Missoula, and I just had such a great experience. Met so many great friends. And a lot of the time was spent doing intramural athletics and doing things like that I stayed involved with that. And then in the 80s, when I was back up in Cut Bank, and lo and behold, Al Kempfert and Harley Lewis showed up on my doorstep looking for money. Didn't know what they were collecting it for, but they said, would you be interested in joining the Century Club, which was the $100 club at that time, the GSA? And I said, sure, I can do that. And one thing led to another, and ultimately I was able to get back to Missoula, Montana, and it's been a wonderful trip.
Harley Lewis is a guy that is a captivating figure to me. You and I spent a night at the Montana Football Hall of Fame last spring with Harley Lewis, but he was the athletic director of Montana throughout all the 1980s. He's the guy that sort of spearheaded the building of Washington Grizzly Stadium. And years before you ever sat in that same seat as him, he was doing such good work at Montana. What sort of things did he sort of teach you and pass along to you when you became the AD at Montana?
You know what? I was very lucky because I got to work with a lot of good people, both in volunteer basis as well as when I went to the University of Montana. When I moved back to Missoula and I was offered a job at the GAA at the time, soon to become GSA, I was able to work with great people, in the GSA. Bill Schwanke, I worked with him, and I worked with Al Kempfert, and Wayne Hogan was the athletic director, and he was the one who kind of said, hey, would you consider coming to work here? And I thought, you know what, I was ready to leave the profession of journalism and sold my newspaper, our family newspaper, to my employees and came down here. So I got a chance to work with some very talented people. Never in my mind did I think I was going to be the athletic director at the University of Montana, nor that was anything that I really had any interest in. I remember Don Reed. I got to spend some time with him in the year that he came back and led the program, and I found out why he was such a great coach. He became such a great mentor to me, somebody I still think the world of. He became almost like a father figure to me. We spent a lot of times in the mornings when he would be at work. Don would always be there at 4 o'clock in the morning. he was an amazing guy. And,
his name is Don.
He's
got to be there when the sun comes up.
That was so true. And we spent a lot of early mornings together talking. And I'll never forget, it was April of 2005, and I had been working in athletics with the major gift portion of it. And he told me, he says, Jim, I am going to announce my retirement again. you need to go for this job. And I'm like, no, Don, I don't. I really like the job I'm doing. I love working in the major gift area. I really enjoyed working with the people I did. And he said, no, you need to go after this job. And I said, I need some time to think about it. And my family was very supportive. And I remember my youngest son at the time, he finally told me, he says, Dad, you're always telling us you need to work and go to the highest level you can and work as hard as you can. And now you're afraid to do that. I said, that's just enough to upset me. Mm-hmm. I said, we'll go for the job. And we did that. So, but as far as what I learned from Harley, it was to work with people and to see how many dedicated and passionate fans are out there across the state of Montana and actually across the country. And they all worked it very hard. Harley Lewis worked it very hard. Don Reed worked it very hard. Wayne Hogan worked it hard. Those were guys, again, that I learned so much from and understanding the value of being able to work with those people who could really help you get to another level.
Former athletic director of the University of Montana, Jim O'Day, in with us on the ESPN Roundtable. You worked for a guy for many years who occupies some sort of mythic form in people's minds, people who knew him, people who didn't know him, but George Dennison as the president there. What was he like to you, and what was it like for you to work for him?
Well, George was almost like a father figure to us as well. He was there.
A stern father.
A very stern father.
Yes.
But one that you totally respected.
Right.
He was there when you needed him. He also would lecture you a little bit. He would tell you the difference between right and wrong. He didn't mince words, but he was somebody that really, truly understood athletics. His son, Rick, played in the NFL, also coached in the NFL. So, George was just one of those guys who really understood the value of athletics to a university, to the program. He was one that was always there on the sidelines. He would be as many events as he could possibly get to. The coaches knew he was there. We all knew he was there. He was a big figure at all the events.
I want to ask you about athletics as a feature of university life, because I find myself, I don't know how to think or what I think is the right way to think or feel about this in the following respect. Athletics is, by definition, extracurricular. Even Division I varsity athletics at a school, and they're student athletes, and the schooling in the education is presumably, the central feature of what they're for. And let's be honest, most of these kids, they need that education because the athletic route is not what their future professions are going to be. But also, it occupies such an inordinate amount of financial impact, good or bad, to a university, as well as the front door to the public by far over almost anything else that a university does are its athletics programs by and large. What do you think about the role that athletics does and should play in the university world?
One of the things that I always said when I was the director of athletics is that, yes, we are the front door to the university. But I also looked at it in my previous profession, is that we were advertising for the university.
Right.
You can't pay for that kind of advertising that you get when your athletic programs are doing well. You also have to remember there are going to be times you're dealing with 20-year-old kids that there are going to be some negatives that you're going to be there. But, as long as you can understand the value, I realized how important the academic part of it was. We were very lucky. I had people who really, coaches, administrators, and everybody who realized, these kids were probably not going to be professional athletes, but they were going to be professional in some area, that they're going to have some expertise in, and they do. Now, today's world is a little bit different. It's changing things, not the way I really like it, but I look at schools like the University of Montana, Montana State, and they still have who I really consider student athletes, kids, young men and women who really excel both academically and athletically. And you get to know them and you get to watch them. Just like if you're growing with your own kids, there are going to be some areas and there's going to be times where you run into some issues and some problems and concerns. We forget again half the time that they're 20-year-old kids and they're not 35-year-old professionals. So they are going to run into, I always get a kick out of when, a football game is on and some people will be screaming and yelling and you're forgetting that, 2 hours ago, these poor kids maybe were fighting with their boyfriend or girlfriend, and it was a big thing to them. Or somebody was worried about, or there had been some issues in a family. They have the same issues that take up their mind, and sometimes their mind isn't always on that athletic event like we would always think that they should be. Just a great time to be with in the lives of many of these young men and women.
Upwards of 350 Division I men's basketball programs right now. And then when you look at football, 245, 250 Division I programs. But I think that people see Ohio State and Michigan and Alabama and Texas on TV, and they see 100,000 people in the stands, and they hear about this TV money. Every school in the Power Five is getting $15, $16, $20 million in TV revenue sharing. And they're trying to figure out a way to operate as a nonprofit because they have so much money at their disposal. But that's not the case for most of Division I athletics, including in the Big Sky Conference at the FCS level in the state of Montana at the University of Montana. You and I have talked about this so much when we're not on the mics, but I feel like there is a misperception because people do see this grandiose, great event every Saturday in the fall at Washington Grizzly Stadium. They see 5,000-plus fans at Dahlberg Arena to watch Travis DeCuire's men's basketball team. But the reality of the situation is that it's really hard to make money at small school athletics, Division I athletics, period. So what do you think of just the landscape of Division I athletics right now? How has it changed? And what are some of the things that maybe would surprise the general public when you're talking about just broadly, but also the financials of the situation?
Well, I think money has become such a big part of the game. It's unfortunate, but a lot of decisions are based on money. You'll sit there and you look at if you were in a business and that business was full every day and you saw people just packed full of all their different things, their items that they took out of that store, you'd think, boy, they are making a ton. You take football even at the FCS level. I take University of Montana, for example. Well, football, we're very fortunate that our football program is able to make some money. I wouldn't say the ton that everyone thinks, but it is able to be self-sustaining and maybe make a little bit when you start to realize you have 100 young men. You're flying 100 young men somewhere. You've got them on scholarship. You're paying their insurance, and insurance is not cheap. Think about it.
And mention that, the scholarship part, too, because people think, oh, you're on scholarship, so you go to school for free. No. The schooling is paid for to the cent to the university from the athletic department. There is absolutely money changing hands to the tune of, as you said, football is 63, I think, at the FCS level, 63 times whatever a full scholarship tuition. That's a check being written every semester from the athletic department over. So it's not just like, oh, we'll grant free admission to this kid.
No, it's millions of dollars.
Yeah, right.
Millions of dollars that you're exchanging that, again, help pay for things that happen at the university. So, yeah, I think that's a very popular misconception. And it is. And because, Title IX adds a lot in there, too, because with Title IX, you also have to be very cognizant and aware of what you're spending on what, because you also have to have that to the other sport. And each school's not the same. People often ask, well, how come Montana State doesn't have women's soccer and they don't have softball? They don't have to.
Right.
They can meet one of the three prongs of Title IX because I believe 54% of their population is male.
And they also have alpine skiing and Nordic skiing.
Right. So you take those things that are a little bit different, so you're not comparing apples with apples all the time. So it impacts budgets so much. And again, like I said, a place like Montana State, because of the passionate fan bases that both of them have, and they're willing to pay probably more for tickets than most other schools are, maybe even in the Big Sky Conference, of course, and in the FCS level. We see that all the time. We're very fortunate with the people who do support us in these schools.
As an athletic director, I think people understand the hirings and the firings. That's such an obvious and public part of the job. You're going to hire the next coach. You're going to fire the guy who's not, man or woman, who's not performing well. But so much of it seems like behind the scenes is budgeting, financials, fundraising. On a day-to-day, how do you balance that, and what is the overall balance?
Well, I remember people used to ask me, how much time should you be spending as an athletic director at a Division I school to fundraise? And realistically, you probably need to be 70%. And people would ask me, well, how much are you spending? And I'm saying 10%. And 10% means being everywhere every night because you don't have time during the rest of the day because you have so many different things, so many tentacles, different people that need to talk to you, different things that are going on that you need to be aware of. You go to a big school like Ohio State. Gene Smith at Ohio State probably spends 80% of his time fundraising, and he's able to do that. At a Division I FCS level school, if you can spend 10%, 15%, you're very fortunate because you have your other staff is still, they are so busy in what they're trying to do, they can't take other areas that you really need them to help you with.
Jim O'Day, the subject of our ESPN roundtable, and Jim, you went to the University of Montana. You worked in the athletic department all the way up to the top post in the athletic department as the athletic director. Your tenure ended, and it didn't end really nicely for you at that time. And there's a lot of people who have a lot of things that they think about that space of time at the university, that at the athletic department and so forth. First of all, if that had happened to a lot of people, there's a lot of people who would have just been, well, out. I'm done with this. And you have not been that. You're consistently at events, at games, and involved in the community and even in the university as well. So I'd like to know why that has happened for you, why you're able to do that and want to do that. And also for people, people are looking at this, whether it's through the lens of the media and now through the lens of time going back. What do people not maybe understand, or what is your perspective on that space of time and what transpired?
There's a lot of reasons why things happen. I will go back and feel and look at it on a positive in that I was very fortunate to be in one of the greatest times in Grizzly athletic history. I had a great staff. I had people who were so dedicated, so passionate. They were as passionate as the fans, and they were fans. They never asked me, I can only work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. They worked hard, and they still do. They still do, which, that's very... not very usual. You see that. The people that work so hard at the university, and the people not just in athletics, but people that that worked with you, we were successful. I look at in my time, I came here in March of 1998, and I was here till March of 2012. We had 34 Big Sky Conference championship teams. There's nobody the Big Sky. We were so fortunate. We have more schools now. Things just happened to work out well when we were there. But I look back at what a great time in our school's history, and how fortunate we were. We had great coaches, we had great people that worked there. We have great coaches there right now. I was very fortunate to work with many of them that are still there, that have been very successful. But again, I look at, now you get a chance and you get to talk to a lot of their former student athletes and get their opinion of them. And it even makes you happier about the people that you worked with. Because, I was able to have Bobby Houck on our staff when I was there, and he's back again. And now these kids, some of them are in their 30s, and they want their kids to play for Bobby Houck. And maybe at the time they were like, wow, he's so tough on us. But boy, they all want their kids to play for Bobby Houck. What a great sign of respect. Travis DeCure, Shannon Schwain, I go all the way down. They are just quality class people. And give people some time, and they start to realize, it's kind of like when you go back into school and you think about your high school teachers or your college professors who had great impacts on your life. I hear that from former student athletes all the time. And we had a great period of time.
I remember distinctly sitting in your office in the fall of 2007, writing a profile on you as my first story for the Montana Kaimin. And at that time, at the University of Montana, the men's basketball team was coming off an NCAA tournament win. The women's basketball team, I think, was 3-time defending Big Sky champions. They had also gone to the NCAA tournament. And the football team was in the midst of one of the great runs in the history of the Big Sky Conference. And I think at that moment there was a statistic that there was only 2 Division I athletic departments in the country that had a BCS Bowl and or national championship game appearance, a win in the men's NCAA tournament, and a women's basketball team that qualified for the NCAA tournament. I think it was Tennessee and Montana. That was it. And looking at the state of athletics at the University of Montana now,
It still feels like a flagship program in the Big Sky Conference that has a ton of potential as well as an ultimately strong foundation. But since your departure, Montana has not been nearly what it once was. From your perspective, what do you think of just where Grizz Athletics is at, and what are the biggest challenges do you think facing University of Montana right now?
Well, I think a lot of things have changed. I mean, there has been real changes over the years, and one that I see is the expansion of the Big Sky Conference. We've brought in other schools that are good schools that are in there, and that has made a huge difference. To think about going back and winning a Big Sky Conference football title every year. I remember a number of years when Bobby was head coach that if we tied for the conference championship, he didn't order championship rings. Right. Now we're probably wishing that we had, because some of those kids missed out on championship rings. Right. Like, I think one year the Big Sky had, a couple of years ago, they had 3 different teams that tied for the league, and everybody had a championship ring.
Yeah.
But those things have changed a lot. The money, I think other schools have become much better. I think they have put more money into their programs. I think they have seen where, if they put that in, maybe things did work for Montana, because, everyone always thought we had the money to do everything. But I think we just did money maybe better than others. I remember our equipment room. Steve Hackney is a guy I just have such great respect for. And I always remember we'd look at the equipment budgets for football for Montana and Montana State, and we would be $20,000 less on our annual budget. And we would play maybe 3 or 4 more games because of playoffs each year. But there'd be hack. You'd take gloves like a golf glove that the receivers used. He didn't throw them away. Most schools throw them away after every game. He'd be there with the string. He'd be out there sewing them like crazy. Those things were so tight you could hardly move them. Steve Hackney was also a guy that he did not like to have the names on the back of the jerseys, not because of what it meant, but it cost $8 to put each one on. So, I mean, we watched things so close all the time that, again, you had great people who really understood the value. But times do change. And I think budgets are not that much different. You don't compare apples with apples all the time. Our travel budgets, because of where we are a lot more expensive than someone in California who can play a lot of teams right there and bus them. And a bus trip may cost you $10,000, $12,000, and a flight may cost you $80,000. So there's huge differences there.
On that same note, though, just being immersed in it like we both were, there was a distinct expectation of excellence. And I think that spurred on everyone. When you hung out with the football players and the men's basketball players would come around, they all wanted to be good for the name on the front of the jersey as well. Do you feel like that's a real dynamic in college athletics when you do have it rolling like you guys did?
Yeah, you do. I remember Joe Castiglione, who's at Oklahoma, and he would always say, "Do your fans realize what you guys are doing?" Right. And I was honest to him. I said, "No, I don't think they do," because
Right.
we won conference championships over and over and over, and it was so hard. You take like some of the Olympic sports to try and recruit kids here, sometimes in track and field, and tennis, and golf, volleyball, and some. Those are sports that you see down south, and to try and convince them that we had no indoor facility, that they could come up here and win championships, they worked as hard as they could, but they really got coached. Those kids really got coached, and they continue to get coached. And whenever I see one of those programs finishing, in the top 3 or 4, it's pretty impressive what they've been able to do.
Jim O'Day, former athletic director of the University of Montana, the subject of our ESPN Roundtable. And Jim, at this point in your life, you are doing consulting. You are doing some fundraising in the private sector. You've been working with Destination Missoula. We talked about your work with the Special Olympics and so forth. But what is your life like now in terms of not some of what you're doing, but also just where you're at in life and your perspective on what you get to do and what you are up to?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a lot different than when I left athletics and you were working 18 hours a day. And same thing when I was in the newspaper business. Your time was spent totally there. I mean, you're so focused on that. I have a lot more time anymore to spend. And
I mean, you are here.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean,
there we go.
Just throwing it away,
you also get to, I look at these administrators especially in athletics, and I still stay in touch with so many of them. And I listen to all the stresses and things that I really don't have anymore. I feel for them because money is directing so many decisions, right, wrong, or indifferent. It flat is. Television. You look at, okay, why would we play a football game on a Thursday or a Tuesday night? It's dictated for them. They have no choice. We look at men's basketball, and I remember it used to say, well, we have to watch out because we can't get them out of class so much. And yet there's a men's Division I basketball game on TV every night. So somebody's taking somebody out of class, and they're having to work hard to do whatever but it has changed so many, and it's not just basketball. Take the golf team. They can only get on golf courses, probably Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So that means going somewhere on a Sunday, maybe getting back Wednesday night, going to class 1 or 2 days, and then it's time to get back at it again. And how these kids do it, they balance their lives so well. People just have no idea how hard they balance their life. Plus, they're doing it about 12 months out of the year. They don't have off seasons anymore, which I don't necessarily care about. But it's even like the coaches today. You talk to some of the football coaches, and you know what? The season, we haven't had a football season for a while, but do you think they've had a break? No. And now they're in camps. Now July, they're going to get a little bit of time off. And I always tell them, I hope you get out of Missoula a little bit because you need a little bit of break. I have that break anymore. I still follow all these guys very closely. I do some consulting for a group out of Atlanta that I help them with some of their studies and things like that when they're called in and when they do it at a level that's very similar to the FCS. But the stresses and everything that those guys are putting their time into, I don't have that anymore.
Jim, it's been great to be with you today. Thanks so much for being with us and being a part of the ESPN Roundtable.
Absolutely. Always fun to visit with you guys.
Jim O'Day, great of him to come in here and spend that time with us. It's a phenomenal time to speak with him and to just hear kind of his perspective, his stories, his history, and that includes much of the history of the athletics department at the University of Montana. If you want to hear that again, if you haven't heard it all, you can check it out on our podcast through the show, and it's also filed away on its own. The Big Sky Breakdown podcast series at SkylineSportsMT.com. So it's part of that podcast series as well. So you can go check out that and all of the other ESPN roundtables that we've done there. But we really appreciate Jim coming in and doing that great interview with him. Brought to us, Coulter, by Paradise Falls.
Paradise Falls, 3621 Brooks Street, 18 draft beers, over 30 big screen TVs, but more importantly, great back deck you can sit out now. That's really nice. If you're going golfing, you need to get a cocktail afterwards. Go on over there. They got one of the best late happy hours in town. I know a lot of guys play leagues on Wednesdays and Thursday nights. Right. Perfect timing. 9 p.m., the late happy hour starts. $3 beers, half-price apps, half-price cocktails. You can sit out on the deck, watch the sunset. Pretty darn good. They got a new casino and a new part of that, the right side of the restaurant, which is all redone and remodeled, looks great. So go check them out. Paradise Falls. They're open 7 a.m. to midnight. So whether you need breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or one of the best late happy hours in town, they got you covered. Paradise Falls, Missoula's coolest hotspot.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River. Take summer by storm with a new Polaris off-road vehicle. During the summer sales event, rebates go as high as $2,000 and financing is as low as 3.99%. Live your life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on our legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. Whatever you're looking for, now is the time to take your pick from the off-road's best-selling lineup. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $2,000 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Summer Sales Event at Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday, and they are celebrating with unprecedented savings on select parts and accessories with the purchase of a new Polaris off-road vehicle, Beta or Husqvarna dirt bike, or any of their new line of Crest pontoon boats. Go to Kurtz Polaris for details. Offers valid in U.S. through 7/23/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet, never drink and ride. Hey,
Hey there, Colter Nuanez from Tutel Nuanez 1029 ESPN Missoula here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom got me a great deal on an automatic car starter this winter. Now it's summer. What sort of stuff you guys got going on down there, Tom?
Well, Colter, coming into the summertime, we're picking up on the window tinting front. So if you need your windows tinted, give us a call. We'll get you scheduled up. Boats and ATVs are starting to come in full swing, and we're also starting to see the hot rods come out to play. Anything audio related, let us know. We'll get you taken care of.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
Alpine Touch has been providing you with the distinct seasonings you know and love for decades. Now, Alpine Touch has something to help you unleash the freshness of all the delicious flavors you need to spice up any meal. Check out Alpine Touch's new coarse grinds, unleashing the fresh taste of the garlic pepper or all-purpose seasonings to please any nose or taste bud. Coarse grinds can be purchased by the pound at retail locations around the state or at alpinetouch.com. Use the code ESPN10 at checkout to get 10% off any online order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Come check out the best late happy hour in town at Paradise Falls. Offering $3 microbrews, half-price cocktails and appetizers, and much more. Paradise Falls late happy hour runs from 9 until 11 p.m. Monday through Thursday nights. If you're in the mood for an evening cocktail or you're just getting off the golf course, swing on by 3621 Brook Street. As the days grow longer, come enjoy the sunset on Paradise Falls' spacious back deck while enjoying a beverage. Paradise Falls, located at 3621 Brook Street, open 7 a.m. to midnight. Paradise Falls, Missoula's coolest hotspot.
So what do we say? We give away a bunch of stuff around here, right? That's what we do. Well, that's what we're going to keep right on to. It's Tutel Nuanez, 1029 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana TV. Hi, how are you? Great to be with you on this Thursday. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris is celebrating their 30th anniversary. That's right, all month long. Month of July, 30 years they've been in business, and they're celebrating by offering you up to 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna or Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month. July's Kurtz 30th anniversary sale. Colter, let's put these things together. That's what I think we got to do. We got Board of Missoula gift cards. We've been giving away gift cards to the Board of Missoula here on the weekly. And Missoula's original board shop, man. Skateboards.
30th anniversary this year.
Oh, man. How about that? Two businesses in business 30 years together, same year. Very good. Board of Missoula, we got a $25 gift card for you down to the Board of Missoula. And guess what? We'll throw in a 4-pack of Osprey tickets to Saturday's baseball game. The 13th Saturday, the Missoula Osprey will be the last game of the Orem Owls homestand. Before they start to take on, who are they playing after that?
Ogden Raptors.
Ogden,
Orem
right,
and Ogden,
sure.
Easily confused.
Yes, it is. But Orem will be the last game on Saturday, so we'll throw in 4 tickets right now. 329-1899, caller number 3 to 329-1899, area code 406-329-1899, a $25 gift card to the Board of Missoula, and 4 tickets to the Osprey baseball game on Saturday. So we try and do around here a little bit of philanthropy, you know?
Philanthropy?
It's your opinion, dude. You know, I'll sit here and try and imagine me. But Colter, we went to the Osprey game last night, got the back end of it, and Spencer Brickhouse, 3 for 4, hit a bomb, hit a 3 RBI double, a bases clearing double with a bases loaded situation. An unbelievable swing. It was 4-1 Missoula. It was 3-1 when we got there. Missoula scored a run. It was 4-1 Missoula. In the bottom of the 8th inning, the Owls get up to bat, bases loaded, 2 outs, and Missoula gets a strikeout to, end what could have been a significant threat. I mean, you're talking about the go-ahead lead run is at the plate. Next inning, bases loaded, no out for Missoula, and Spencer Brickhouse comes through with just enough on a deep shot to center field to get over the center fielder and clears the bases. Close play at the plate, but runner safe. 5 RBI night. And it is surprising. Spencer Brickhouse, his first home run of his professional career. I mean, he's a 7th-round draft pick. Big
first team All-American each of the last years.
Certainly expected to be, a slugger, slugging average and power hitter. He's a first baseman. But you said trying to get used to that wooden bat, which is a significant adjustment from the college game.
Totally. And, against pro pitching and stuff like that, sometimes you got to just let – it's just like in golf, right? Like if you swing harder, it doesn't necessarily mean anything besides bad. And
right.
You can just tell he's handling the bat a lot better. He's staying back a lot better. And like that first the home run he hit, he went to the opposite field. It's not as if he just crushed one down the power alley. He just floated one out there. But he's a big enough dude, and he's got a good swing. He's got strong wrists.
Yeah.
Now that he's staying back on the ball and he's whipping the bat head through the zone, you can tell. And he said that last night. He said, I've been frustrated. We talked about it yesterday. He was slugging .318, which is really low for his position.
Sure.
He only had a couple extra base hits. Well, he got himself a couple last night just by staying back and letting her rip, and he was the reason that the Osprey won for the 8th time in 12 games last night.
Not a bad slugging percentage. 7 bags in 4 at-bats. You can do that. You can do that. Take that all day long. All right, very good. Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Congratulations to Giovanni, the big winner of the tickets and the Board of Missoula giveaway. Good for him. We'll get out, come back, finish up the show. Next. For 20 years, the Missoula Osprey have brought Missoula a fan-friendly experience in one of the most beautiful summer settings in America, and the baseball has been top-notch as well. ESPN Missoula is happy to be the exclusive radio carrier of the Missoula Osprey once again this summer. Tune in to 102.9 FM to hear every single Osprey game as the Birds chase another Pioneer League title. The Missoula Osprey broadcasts are brought to you in part by Widmer Brothers Brewing, Diversified Construction and Materials, Mission Paint, and Selway Armory. In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up, pump it up.
Town Pump always has your favorite snacks and drinks. Check out their new item, Big Sky Spiked Seltzers, variety 12-pack cans for only $14.99. Need a snack? Old Trapper 3 1/4 ounce jerky is just $3.99. Town Pump is there for you, right down the road.
Town Pump, right down the road. Pump it up, oh yeah.
You've chosen the caterer, addressed the invitations, and picked out a cake. But have you decided where to bank? Farmer State Bank offers just what you need as you start your new life together. Checking and savings accounts, electronic banking options, the latest tech, even locally approved mortgages. And with 9 Western Montana locations, there's a Farmer State Bank where you live, work, and play. Congratulations from all of us at Farmer State Bank, an equal housing lender and member FDIC.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here, and I'm with Josh from the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, if our listeners have been injured in an accident, how can you help?
We're here to help you after a car accident by negotiating with insurance companies, recovering lost wages if you have any, and even getting you into a rental car if you need one. Call us today for a free consultation, and we'll get started helping you right away.
If you need help, get a hold of the Advocates. Call Josh at 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve an advocate.
You're a big league fan. You expect big league service. At the Desperado, you get exactly that. With 35 flat screens, ice-cold brews on tap, and Missoula's #1 wings, you're free to sit back and enjoy every pitch. This summer, make the Desperado your baseball home away from home. Cool off after work, relax on the weekends, soak in some great food and drinks, and watch your team make yet another great push for October. And hey, if yours can't do it, there's plenty of other teams and fun to go around at the Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell across from the Y.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Beautiful night. Good day for a concert. It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. July, Kurtz Polaris 30th birthday anniversary. That's right, 30 years they've been in business, and they're celebrating by offering you up to 30% off. That's right, 30% off. Any up to 30% off MSRP on many new select parts and accessories with the purchase of any off-road vehicle, Husqvarna or Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Get into Kurtz for details. Kurtz Polaris, Missoula, and Sealy all month. Kurt's 30th anniversary sale. If you missed anything in the show, you can check it out on the podcast. The podcast is available on the TuneIn Radio app and on iTunes and on Spotify and anywhere that you get your podcast. It is there thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. If you're traveling in and out, sometimes rates go up in the summer. Coulter, not for the Wingate. They keep them the same all year round. Business travelers, traveling out of friends out of town, all of it, same rate. You got it.
Great place to host a business event. Great place if you're traveling around for business, if you're going back to and from Missoula. Great rates year-round for all business travelers. They don't raise the rates in the summer, which is a plus and a rarity this day and age. If you need anything and everything from for your business needs, just give them a call out at the Wingate. Ask for Alicia or Kim. They'll get you all set up. They get you the meeting room you need. They get you all set up for any of your business needs. And if you need a nice place to go cool off, you need to take the kids to the pool, you want to hit the water slide, anything like that, they got you covered. The Wingate by Wyndham, making you feel at home even when you're not.
Coulter, it's supposed to be 90 tomorrow. Now, you're out tomorrow. You're going to go get your tooth drilled on again.
Difference between me and you, we do full-fledged promos when you're leaving, and we don't even tell people I'm leaving until a minute before the end of the show.
Well, that's because you don't tell anybody you're leaving until 2 minutes before the end of the show.
That's because it's never about me. This is your show. I just participate.
Anyway, Regime Seabrook, I believe, plan to be in here tomorrow with me. Always look forward to having Regime in. We wish you the best on your dental endeavors tomorrow. We will speak about this on Monday.
This thing's been going for 17 years.
Yeah.
Need something to stick here.
One of the great stories from all who were in attendance to watch.
Oh my gosh! I hope that they're listening because these guys are so mean that they still think this is hilarious. The only gift I got in terms of my looks is my teeth. Never had braces. Got great teeth. Get one knocked out. All my friends think it's the funniest thing that's ever happened.
You know, it's ironic because the only bad part about my body is my teeth. It's the one thing that didn't quite.
Well, that's why we're a great combo. I've been able to ride it out with no tooth for 2.5 years because I'm friends with you.
Between the two of us, we're hideous.
Or individually, for that matter.
You're going to a concert tonight? You're going to go see
Slightly Stupid out at the
Yahoo?
Kettle House Amphitheater. Is he there too? I didn't even know that.
Yahoo.
Okay.
What do you mean you didn't know? I mean, it's hard. That sounds like a.
Well,
double
I am
bill
slightly stupid.
Oh wow.
Bum.
Can't believe we didn't get favorite radio personality. Can't believe it.
It's because they put us on TV, and now they are.
Now we're favorite TV personality.
Well, no, now they know what we look like, so they'll never love us again.
Oh, stop with that. Boys and girls, have an enjoyable Thursday.
I'm calling the show tomorrow.
You call in. We'll take your call
from my mom's couch.
just drooling all over yourself. Enjoy Osprey baseball. Enjoy the Cons, and see you tomorrow. Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Now, the Montana Club's happy hour features BOGO beverages. Our expertly mixed cocktails, microbrews, domestics, and wine are buy one, get one free 7 days a week from 3 to 5:30. Stop in on Friday for Montini night. Sip on a top shelf martini for only $6, 5:30 to close. When you've worked hard all day and are ready to relax, the Montana Club has got you covered with BOGO happy hour 7 days a week, 3 to 5:30 on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here, and I'm with Josh of the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, what are people left dealing with after an accident?
Well, quite a few things, actually. We see people that are in pain. They still need to get to work. They need to raise their kids, and now they have to take time to go see doctors and other healthcare providers. They're frustrated with working with the insurance companies and getting the runaround. We'll take on the burden of dealing with the insurance companies so you can get the best settlement possible and get back to your life.
Find your advocate online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
Les Schwab is proud
to introduce two of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get up to $150 instant rebate on 4 backcountry MT or AT tires or $50 on 4 road control passenger tires.